Hey, good evening, Fiona Lali. Thank you for coming on the show. And recently, you got a lot of eyeballs for telling Suella Braverman off. Telling her to her face that she's a war criminal, or talking to the two lovers on Talk TV to the point, and annoyed them to the point that they kicked you off. To the people out there in the world, can you tell them who are you, what are your political philosophy, and how you came about them?
Yes, thanks. So yeah, I'm a member of the Revolutionary Communist Party, and the way I came to joining the Revolutionary Communist Party and my politics, I would say, is when I was university, kind of questioning the world and questioning things. Actually, first and foremost, I joined the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn when he became the leader of the Labour Party. Jeremy Corbyn, I would say, kind of popularized ideas of socialism for a whole generation of people, of young people in particular. When Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party, it became the biggest political party in Europe, and he was talking about anti-austerity and these kind of things. But then I met, the organization that I'm part of today, and they introduced me to the theory and ideas of Marxism, which explained the world in a materialist way. And that really showed me that the world is not just a battle of good ideas and bad ideas, but actually is the way that the world exists today is rooted also in the development of the class struggle and the development of the economy, and that has a real material root. And I think that having that framework is what has allowed me to understand the war and the conflict in Palestine, why Israel acts in the way that it does, and also given me a philosophy and a path of how to take that forward and how to actually liberate Palestine. It's through the ideas of Marxism, which is also based in the class struggle as a whole. I think that is a very eye-opening, liberating way of understanding the world, because it shows us that we actually have the power to change things, which is very important. And by we, I mean the working class of the world has the power to change the whole of society, because we actually run society ourselves. And that's one of the most important developments, I would say, in my politics and the way I understand things.
Yeah, it's about power to the people.
Yeah, exactly. Power to the people.
Yeah, great. Young people nowadays, especially after the recent Israeli-Palestine fights, and that are turning to politics and having altruistic and selfish goals. Because it seemed like for the past decades that all the youth were concerned about materialism, how to get money, how to get clout on YouTube, or getting Gucci, getting money, all that kind of stuff. So what do you have to say like to that? That that young people like yourself are getting into politics and like doing selfless stuff, because most people like knocked off the youth like for good, for some good reasons, that they were just like materialistic and just wanted like just climb the echelons of the corporate world.
Yeah, I think that today young people are much more politicized than they have been in the past, and they're much more radical. And I would say actually even open to Marxism and revolutionary ideas and communist ideas. And the reason that that is, and that is a little bit different from how it's been in the past. And the reason that that is because capitalism now is in its deepest ever crisis. For young people growing up, they have only experienced a version of capitalism which has just been austerity, cuts, war, climate chaos, the pandemic. Everything they're experiencing is actually life getting harder, the rich getting richer and the poorer getting poorer. There's no longer the idea that you can just grow up, get a job, go to university, have a family, buy a house. That's no longer a reality for young people when they're looking
Or
at their
just party
future.
the or party and go to festivals. That's what, like because a lot of young people are like aspiring to be
Yeah,
that.
I mean, even that's quite expensive. It's quite expensive to go to a festival these days as well. And so I think all of that makes young people, in particular in society, very open to alternatives and alternative systems. And there's a lot of really interesting polls that show young people are opposed to capitalism, actually. And not only are they opposed, because it's easy in some ways to be against things, but they actually are for socialism. They're for an alternative, which I think is very significant and important.
Okay. So who is your favorite communist philosopher and leader in history, and why?
Oh, good question. I would say Lenin, and that's because I mean this year actually is 100 years since the death of Lenin, and the reason that Lenin is so important is because Lenin really was one of the main leaders, or well, was the leader, if you want, of the Bolshevik Party, which led the Russian workers to power in October in 1917. And I think that one of the biggest significant aspects of Lenin was also that he was an internationalist, right? And he sought to set up, and he did set up an international organization that was aiming to build communist parties all over the world. You know, when the Russian Revolution happened, this really changed the world, and the Bolsheviks and the Comintern became a shining light for all revolutionaries all over the world. Were looking to them as a path forward, and it was a symbol of hope of what is this alternative to capitalism, which I think is very interesting and very significant. Now, obviously, as time went on, I would say the Soviet Union degenerated and moved away from the ideas that Lenin stood for, and the genuine ideas of Marxism and Bolshevism, which can be spoken about another time in terms of its degeneration. However, yeah, what Lenin represented was a fearless revolutionary internationalist position, and it's for that reason that I would say Lenin is probably one of the most slandered revolutionaries and attacked by the ruling class all over the world, precisely because he actually was able to help the workers take power. And they've never forgiven him for that. So they do as much as they can to slander his name and yeah, do lots about that. So I think Lenin this year has to be, yeah, the top revolutionary for me, top communist.
All right. For me, I think it's Fidel Castro, because I guess it was only it's an island nation that faced on the United States and basically gave it a black eye, and the United States was so embarrassed. And it helped out, with the Angolan War and fight against South Africa. So
Yeah.
that was pretty epic for me as an Ethiopian. So he's I think he's
Can I add to that as well? I totally
yeah.
understand why you say that, because obviously he was an anti-imperialist, right? And that is a struggle that inspires so many people all over the world. And I would also link that back to Lenin. A big part of what Lenin's program was, and the Communist International's program was to fight colonialism. If you were a party that wanted to join the Comintern, it was a condition that you had to fight colonialism, not just in words, but in deeds. You had to actively support anti-colonial struggles. But yeah, again, eventually the international organization degenerates, and it's actually Stalin ended the international organization at one point. He dissolved it entirely. But yeah, I think the anti-imperialist struggle is one that has inspired millions of people all over the world, and clearly is inspiring us today with Palestine as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, for sure. So I want to talk to you about your Suella Braverman interview, and where you did exceedingly well, embarrassed Suella Braverman. Is it Braverman or Braverman? Yeah, Braverman.
Yeah, Braverman. I don't know.
Yeah, and you called her out to her face, and so I want to ask you, what can you tell us about Suella Braverman, and where do you get the courage to to confront her like that, and how how did they approach you in the first place to get the interview in the first and yeah.
Yes, I mean, Suella Braverman was the ex-Home Secretary, and she was quite a significant minister in the Tory government, and she was quite central in trying to draw up policies around immigration in particular, very racist policies, very harsh policies,
Which
and
is funny
promoting.
because I think she comes from an immigrant family. I don't know about her, but she comes from an immigrant family, right? How many generations is she?
Yeah.
UK. I think maybe first generation, second generation, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think so. I
yeah, so
mean,
it's funny.
she wants to be, at the end of the day, she wants to be the leader of the Tory party, which I think is why she was promoting all of these kind of horrific policies, because the Tory party base in Britain are some of the most right-wing, reactionary, racist layers in society. So she was trying to say as much as she could in order to appeal to this very kind of small but very reactionary layer in society. And it's for that reason that I felt I wanted to go on and debate her, is to kind of expose what her real role is and her real goal. She also was kind of brought down, I would say, as I said this in the interview, by the Palestine movement. She tried to have a big confrontation with the Palestinian protesters, and she tried to get the police to be more oppressive than they already were towards them, and was unsuccessful in that, and as a result was kind of forced out of the ministry, sorry, as forced out as a minister at that time. And so this was her attempt to try and claw her way back into a respectable position in the Tory party. And when I saw
Mm,
the video of the students in Cambridge ignoring her and she was kind of embarrassing herself, I thought that was really funny. But then when the opportunity came on to talk to her or debate her on that, I thought, yeah, this is the time now to expose and say to her face what everyone already thinks about her. And also to kind of, I would say, give a bit of almost confidence to the rest of the Palestine movement, because I think, well, in the media in Britain, there's a complete conspiracy of silence over the truth of what's happening in Palestine, and also a complete clamping down of any pro-Palestinian voices in the media as well. And so, yeah, it felt important to go on to expose that, and but also to demonstrate that there are, yeah, a lot of people out there who think this way about
I think you hit
Palestine.
on a very important thing on there. That no, she just got kicked out of the ministry. That's what she said. I don't know about that, right? So I'm not like very on the spot on the English politics. But so
Yeah.
she's just saying like she just lost her job and now she's going out like trying to interview students. So basically, for her, it's not just her support for Israel. It is a political tactic. It is a way to get money or like to show the Tories or the conservative base that hey, look, I'm against these students, and I'm going to show these students who that Israel is the way to to go. We stand with Israel. Kind of stuff. So for her, her stance with Israel is all about just getting money and trying to claw her way back into the like you said like the establishment of the Tory party. It's not like it's not just it's not a genuine support. Like she thinks that what she's doing is right. It's just a pursuit of power. That's what her goal is, and yeah, and hopefully you embarrass her like that on the TV show because or and the kids as well by ignoring her they embarrassed her as well because and they didn't let her like try to use that as a leverage to get into power.
Yeah.
And you want to add something to it or no?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think for people like Suella Braverman, they don't really think about what's right and wrong. Because, as an individual, unless you're, really psychopathic, the murder and maiming and displacement and horrific killing of tens of thousands of people and children and babies would horrify you, right?
Mm.
But for her, it's not about that. It's what's more important, one is her political career that she's trying to develop and maintain in the region, but also even for Keir Starmer, for Rishi Sunak, for all of these people, what's much more important to them is maintaining their imperialist interests in the region as a whole. And they are happy to sacrifice the lives of 30,000, but nearly 40,000 Palestinians in that process. There's a kind of calculated cost that they're making. It's more important to them to maintain that political system that exists, even though morally what's happening is so obviously outrageous to everyone else. And that's really, I think, what's at the heart of this. It's these people, they don't really consider morally what is right or wrong, but just what is necessary to protect their interests and their profits at the end of the day. And that's what this whole thing represents.
Yeah, for sure. But tell me about like UK. Is it the same as United States? For United States, basically, has a basically a symbiotic relationship with Israel. Many of our what do you call it? Politicians, like they go to Israel, and like we just seen recently. I think it was Nikki Haley. She signed I think was it a missile or I'm not like privy to all to the war terms, but I think it was a warhead of some sort. I think for a howitzer maybe.
Yeah.
And then she signed it as like give him hell or something like that, or finish the job, something like that. She wrote on there. And we have what do you call it? Lindsey Graham talking about that. If the ICC goes forward, I think we should sanction the ICC and etc. So he was going all off for Israel and not even his own country over the ICC prosecution of Benjamin Netanyahu. Not prosecution, but they didn't even take out the warrant yet. But they're saying they're going to take out a warrant for Mr. Netanyahu. So is it the same kind of relationship between UK and Israel, like with the APAC, and you have parliamentarians wearing the Israeli uniform to parliament? It's like it's a very symbiotic relationship based on money. A lot of money is like in U.S. politics come from Israel. Is it the same or different?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the whole thing that connects Britain and America to Israel is imperialism. American imperialism is the most dominant form of imperialism, and especially in the Middle East as a whole. And Israel is the key ally of American imperialism in that whole region. Britain's role is to just basically act as a support force and a lapdog for American imperialism. Britain today will just follow and do whatever America does. In terms of the scale of money and so on and so forth, it's obviously a little bit smaller in Britain because Britain does not have the force or the size of the economy that America does. But in terms of the policy and in terms of materially what they end up doing, it's the same, which is their complicity, their funding for Israel, and their diplomatic support. There is also, huge licensing of arms to Israel in British universities where encampments are taking place at the moment. There's it's nearly £500 million, I think, has been invested by universities in Britain into Israel. And so that's what the movement in the UK is obviously targeting, is those investments. And so that exists in a similar way to America. But I would say, yeah, the most important thing is it's about imperialism, about Western imperialism, and what the West is trying to do, or Western imperialist powers try to do, which is maintain their spheres of influence. They want to maintain key allies in the Middle East because they want access to the resources that the Middle East has. They want access to oil, they want access to land, they want access to markets across the Middle East. That is what drives all of their policy, which is what's most important to them.
And what can you tell us about the interview you had with the two guys? Like I think one was bald. Was the other guy bald as well? And was that a toupee? What was that? Like his hair?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
pretty fiery, I guess, and they kicked you off. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely an interesting interview, for sure. What can I tell you about it? I mean, I think that represents the most kind of extreme, belligerent version of maybe what some more of the mainstream media would say if they could get away with it. But there's a certain standards, although they're very, very weak, that some of them try to maintain. But actually, I would say what those two people represented is what all of the propaganda that is promoted by the British state in general and the American state, as it is kind of thrown out into society, it can get cruder and cruder. And then you have people like that who just act as useful defenders of the whole capitalist system and the whole imperialist system. So even when they're contradicting themselves, because they constantly contradicted themselves throughout that interview. He started it by saying, I'm opposed to all war, but then spent the whole time justifying essentially what Israel's doing to the Palestinians.
And he was
And
talking about that, I guess, like, I found it very strange. It's like, oh, it's not a genocide. And let's say kill 1,500,000, something like that. Oh, if they kill 2 million, then,
yeah,
okay, so we have to the 1 million, maybe 1,500,000, maybe 2 million, like the entire region, basically, the entire population of Gaza, basically. When they did that, then we can call it genocide. So, like what Hitler did in the Holocaust is not called considered a genocide because he only attempted to do a genocide and killed 6 million. So it's not actually a genocide because if it was an actual genocide, it would be much more. So
yeah,
it's like that kind of ridiculous. I think it's vile too. And what
yeah.
what did you say to them that set them off, or do you just think they're just fucking crazy people that just like just like whenever you tell them the truth, their just head explodes and they have to yell at you and stuff like that.
I think probably they didn't really listen to a lot of what I said. They were just waiting to speak themselves. They knew before I came on that they wanted to shut down any pro-Palestinian voice. I mean, what really set them off was when I called them a lie, when I called James Whale a liar and a hypocrite towards
Mm.
the end. That was when he was like, go to a break, go to a break. Because I was linking what he'd said at the start when he'd said, oh, I'm opposed to war and I'm opposed to death. And I said, yeah, but you don't care about Palestinians dying. And that's when he went to a break. And that's the most important part and it's the same with all of these politicians. They'll say, oh, it's a tragedy. Yeah, what's happening in Rafah now? Yeah, and I'm really saddened by the scenes that I'm seeing, but they don't actually care, or they care, but what they care about more is maintaining imperialism and maintaining their profits. The other thing that's significant about when he cut me off is I was starting to talk about other horrors that exist in the world. And I was saying, if you care about people dying, why don't you talk about on your show what's happening in Sudan right now? Thousands of people who are dying in Darfur. Why don't you talk about what's happening in Congo? Why don't you talk about all of the deaths that are taking place? But they don't actually care. They claim that they care a lot about the sanctity of human life, and all of this is about October the 7th and so on. But it's not about that to them. They don't actually care about it. All they care about is maintaining and justifying the current setup of the Israeli state, which is based on ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians, and they have to justify that because they need Israel to be it's the main ally of Western imperialism in the whole region. And when you start to poke cracks in their facade of care about death, that's when they start to panic, and that's when they cut you off.
Very good. And I want to ask you this question: why is the Palestinian issue, emboldening so many young people? Why are they so passionate about it? Is it because you are Islamist, or beguiled by Islamists, or getting paid by the Ayatollahs from Iran or the Qataris? Why is that?
I think young people in Britain today are very passionate about the Palestinian struggle and the Palestine cause, the desire for a homeland, because they're connecting and they can see that the same people in Britain who support what Israel's doing are the same people who are involved in attacking the living standards of people in Britain today. They're the same people implementing austerity and justifying austerity. We can see that life is getting harder in Britain. Homelessness is increasing, poverty is increasing, food bank usage is increasing. The NHS is falling apart. The education system is on the verge of bankruptcy. And then yet at the same time, Sunak is trying to increase defense spending, or sending money to Israel. That is becoming very, very apparent in the minds of young people. And so I think that is what is causing the Palestine movement to grow. It's about how it is built into to the capitalist system as a whole. And young people are yeah awake to what is taking place. They can also see, and obviously morally they're outraged by what is taking place. And it's that in conjunction with the brazen lies that our politicians are coming out with to defend it that really enrages people. I would say this is not about religion.
So you're
And that
not,
is how.
so to take a note, you're not being paid by the Ayatollahs or Qatar. You know, no money is given to you didn't see any of that in any of the protests or anything like that, yeah?
No, no,
Or
not at
like
all.
there's not like in the protests. I mean, I don't know in England, but I've been in Ireland. But there are a lot of most of the students, are they mostly from Middle Eastern background or more like are they like eclectic sort and mostly Westerners and yeah, and others?
I would- Yeah, I would say the significance of the protest today is that they are drawing in people from all backgrounds in society. Of course, there's a lot of Muslim Arabs at the protests who feel very connected to what is taking place, but it's that's not the only demographic that is there. It's actually, I mean, I think the biggest protests have had hundreds of thousands of people on the streets from all layers of society, young, old, black, white, Arab, Muslim, Christian, Jewish. There's also huge Jewish blocks on all of these protests as well. And actually, I would say that is why now the ruling class are doing so much to attack the protests. That's why Suella Braverman was saying these are hate marches, they all need to stop. It's because they're scared about the fact that the movement is growing and taking on such a mass character. That is really worrying these people.
Yeah, so I mean, that's good, like in England, because when I was in Ireland, just most of the people that were protesting was mostly white Irish people, and I couldn't even get like most of the. I went to mosque, a lot of mosque and everything like the to get the Muslims, but they didn't want to come because number one, they're immigrants and they're afraid, they're gonna get kicked out. Like I think one of the speakers, I think it was a Muslim speaker from I don't know which country she came from, but she got I think Home Office denied her to renew her visa because she spoke for the Palestinian cause. Do you know anything about that one?
Was
Non-profit?
this the student in a university in Britain?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did hear about that. I don't know the exact details of everything that took place, but I did read about a student whose visa was revoked, which is absolutely outrageous and is another example of how the state is clamping down on basic democratic rights. Freedom of speech is completely under attack. The ruling class like to pretend that the left in general are clamping down on freedom of speech, but actually, what we've seen over the last couple of years is the government clamping down on this right as much as possible, and that needs to be fought, and it needs to be fought on a class basis as well, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like like it's ridiculous this propaganda that they're saying that oh it's like Islamists Islamists have infiltrated the universities, Islamists have pushing the people. So for example, I talked to one Islamist group. I don't want to say Islamist group, but like I say Muslim group in the UK, and they were telling me that they don't want to go to the protests, and I say why, because it's haram, because there's girls there, there's singing, there's dancing, it's like going to the nightclub. I was like you're ridiculous, and I say what are you doing for the Palestinian cause? Oh, we're just praying, so a lot of this is misconstrued that a lot of the Muslim countries uh are allies with the Palestinians, because a lot of them they don't want to do anything with them, like are supporting Israel, as we have seen with Saudi Arabia. Yeah, so this is like I said to a lot of people, like this is not an Arabic cause, this is not an Islamic cause, this is a humanitarian cause. This is a world cause. And anybody does try to like refute that and try to make it into Muslim versus the West, or or radicals Muslim versus Israel and be the West, are liars and are trying to make cover for Israel war crimes. That's what's going on.
Yeah. I agree with you that it's not about it's not about religion and it's not being fought on that basis, especially not in these protests and so on and so forth. We should point out, I would say, the role of the Arab regimes in neighboring countries who they pay lip service to the struggle of the Palestinians, and they talk about supporting our Muslim brothers and sisters, but then in reality, they act as in Egypt and in Jordan, they act as border guards for Israel and they maintain the border. Before October the 7th, all of these countries were trying to set up normalization deals with Israel. And you pointed out Saudi Arabia as well, which obviously maintains its relationships. And it's important to point that out because in a lot of these countries, the young people and workers are so attached to the cause of the Palestinians. They want to help the Palestinians in a genuine way. And actually, what's going to happen, I think, is they're going to see more and more the role that their own governments play in not helping the Palestinians at all, because those governments are also, just like Western imperialism, fundamentally, those governments are also more interested in maintaining their position, their interests. They're scared, I would say, of their own people. They're scared of the kind of struggle or movement that could develop in their own countries. So they're trying to tread very, very carefully with this whole question of Palestine because it could really set alight a whole new wave of revolutionary struggles like the ones we saw in 2011 across the whole of the Middle East. Because these regimes, they claim to care about the Palestinians, but they do nothing to help them. And what workers need to realize across that whole region, workers and young people, is that their only allies are workers in other countries and young people and workers, the working class of other countries. It's not these governments or these institutions that can swoop in and save them.
Yeah, anyway, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so sorry again. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we're back. We had technical difficulties, and yeah. So we were talking about the lies, the black propaganda, the media is portraying, and the Israelis are portraying that that the youth student movements across the world are being beguiled by by Islamic organizations, and it's because of Islamic migrants that all this stuff is going on. And it's not because people care about the lives of Palestinians. Yeah, and you were talking about that. Yeah, the biggest friend people can have is other working people. It's the proletariat cause. It's the humanitarian cause. You hit the head on the nail. You're talking about most of these rulers, like the Saudi Arabia, the Egyptian government, Al-Sisi, like rich people cover their own asses, just like that. It's not a question of they're Arab or the Palestinian Arabs, like they don't see themselves as equal because of the political differences and the monetary differences, especially with the Saudi Arabians, So yeah, the people, like the old saying goes, workers of the world unite. The proletariat. Can't say that word. Proletariat unite as well. You say it again. You say it.
Proletariat.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a better accent than I do. Yeah. So it's nice to meet an actual communist. Since like a lot of people, like you don't meet a lot of communists around the world nowadays, and actual communists actually. And because like you're kind of the boogeyman, in America especially, that they say like everything is your fault, that you are secretly controlling the government, you are secretly controlling the FBI, Apple, Jeff Bezos is a communist. And I think one of my favorite Joe Rogan conspiracy is I don't know if you heard about this one, is Yuri Brezhnev. You don't Yuri Brezhnev. You didn't see the video. It's an old video from the 80s of a Soviet defector. He was talking about how the Soviet Union is infiltrating the West and etc. And so basically people put that on TV. I think it was Call of Duty that put it on first. So people use that and say that, to blame the universities and etc. That, hey, look, this is the Soviet psyop. This is basically what the Soviet Union is doing, and it succeeded. Somehow the Soviet Union has done that, even though they've been gone for like 30 years. Somehow they have infiltrated universities, I don't know, 30 years after they're gone. So there's a lot of black propaganda against communists, and what do you guys are for, and what do you guys do, and what kind of power you have. So how would you go about dispelling those propagandas?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that when the ruling class feels like they can't really win a political argument, the main thing that they do is try and smear and attack any kind of movement. And obviously they've done this with the Palestine movement. And yeah, they do it with massively with communism. And I mean, America is the belly of the beast for that as well. It's kind of McCarthyism, and doing everything they can to twist what communism really means and what communism really represents, and to try and present it as a threat to workers rather than what it actually is, which is the liberation of the working class. That is what communism means, and that is what it stands for, and that is what we're fighting for. And I think what's really significant is that today, that propaganda doesn't work in the same way as it might have done 50 years ago. And that is because of what we were talking about earlier. It's because of the fact that capitalism is in such a deep crisis. And probably partly because, especially in America, they call everyone a communist. Anyone who opposes them, opposes a
But
Republican.
that's why I disagree with you, though, like in a certain sense. That's why I have to disagree with you, because from the people I've talked to, and these are working class people as well. So when I was in London, I was staying at a hostel. So there was people at the hostel. There were working and living in London, but they can't afford their own apartment because of the whatever reasons. Of course the prices, and so they were living in hostels. And one of the guys was complaining about communism to me. It's like, oh, these Marxists this and these Marxists that. I mean, like, what are you talking about now? Who are these Marxists that are like, that are ruling the system? You don't live under a Marxist system. So there's a certain boogeyman that they have created, like Javier Milei as well. He talks about that kind of stuff, the boogeyman. These whatever you want, like these words they what I use is social Marxist, cultural Marxist, woke is another name for communism as well. So there's all these buzzwords that's going around, and they, instead of seeing that all these ailments that are impacting people, whether it's white people or immigrants or etc., they make it seem like, oh, it is Marxism, it is it is the infiltration of the other, whoever these other people are, in Joe Rogan's case, the dead Soviet Union somehow came from the dead and infected them. So it seems like these ghosts actually, these Marxist ghosts are the cause of their problems, not actually the ruling capitalist system that is going on today. So that is the problem, from what I've seen. People are not waking up. I'm pretty sure people are more asleep than they were before. Like a lot of people, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's probably, I would say a minority of people out there who genuinely think, at least in Britain, who genuinely think that Marxism is the cause of their problems. There are these people who promote these ideas, conspiracy theories, and politicians, so on and so forth. I think most people wouldn't identify, Marxism as the problem. And I would say a growing number of people, more people identify capitalism as the problem. They might not always use that word capitalism, but people can see and feel and experience in their day-to-day lives that their boss is making a lot more money than they are. Their life is getting harder. Their rent is going up. That rent is going somewhere. It's going to their landlord, right? There will be people who will try and capitalize on this mood of anger towards the establishment, this mood of anger of what's happening in their lives. And some of them will go in a conspiratorial direction. Some of them might go in a right-wing direction. That's all fine. There are many things right now that are out of my control. What I want to focus on is doing as much as I can to build a political organization that eventually can reach those people in a bigger, more profound way and tell them the truth about what is happening in their lives and tell them the truth about how capitalism is at the root of it, and offer a program and a version of society that is different for that, that offers them genuine standards, decent standards of living in their lives, and genuine equality. And that is possible. We have all the resources to give everyone a decent standard of living, but those resources are privately held. That's what socialism is about. That's what communism is about. It's about giving people genuine ownership and control over their lives, and not having, a small elite group of people, hoarding all the wealth in society and making us work for them instead. But I've got to build a political organization that's big enough to reach those people, and that's ultimately what I'm trying to do.
And you are, I think, the spokesperson for the RCP, yes?
I think in the last couple of weeks I have become one of the spokespeople, I suppose, for the organization. Yeah.
All right, cool. And I heard that the RCP was built in 1944, but then it went away, collapsed, and then when was it built back again? I think it was built in 1900s, like early 1900s. I don't know when it was built, but yeah, was it pretty old already?
Yeah, I mean, my organization has gone through, we actually founded as the Revolutionary Communist Party just a couple of weeks ago in Britain, but our traditions go all the way back to Trotsky and the Fourth International, and therefore before Trotsky, with Lenin and the Third International, and we can trace ourselves all the way up to the First International with Karl Marx. We are the genuine inheritors, I would say, of the genuine ideas of Marxism, of Lenin and Leninism, and of Bolshevism, which Trotsky explained and defended in his time just before he died. And that is, who we trace our roots to, and what we're about.
So so my last question with you is just there's there's a lot of history about communism and etc. But those were different men, like back in the Bolshevik days, or even back in Che Guevara days, or the Vietnam War and Ho Chi Minh. Those were different times, different people, different what do you call it, sensibilities. But how can we carry the tradition, but be work with modern times? Because I don't think I wouldn't call myself all around the know of political science about communism, but from what I've read, it was different times. So how can we put communism in the modern days? Because a lot of the things that are going on back then are not going on today, and it's a different world today, and it's a world where a lot of people are ruled by money. So how will you make yourself different in that kind of sense, and bring communism to the new age? Because I don't think the old communism was going to work for in modern society.
Yeah, I would say that in many ways, capitalism has done a part of the job for us, which is that, capitalism has moved society forward in many ways. And we have in certain parts of the world, quite advanced capitalist countries where there has been a lot of development in technology. And what I would say is that means the transition to socialism would be far, far easier today than it was around 100 years ago. I would say part of the problems as to why the Soviet Union degenerated in the way that it was that they were starting with a country, they were starting with Russia, which is a huge, enormous country, but actually it was quite a backwards country in terms of the level of production that they had. And so they were trying to build socialism in a country that had very low literacy rates, even, for example, the level of education was very low. And they didn't really have the productive forces in order to transition to socialism in a smooth manner. That's also why socialism has to be an international system. We don't believe that you can build socialism in one country, which is also how and why the Soviet Union degenerated. So I would say that today, because of actually many of the advances that capitalism has made, it would mean that our transition into socialism would be a much smoother process because we have all of the technology and the resources that we need to provide a decent standard of living for everyone. And that's what gives me confidence in the type of society that we want to build and that we're fighting for.
That's true. Well, I mean, I hope you good luck, and I hope you succeed in your political career, and I hope you guys get good economists, to help you with with all that kind of stuff, and yeah, and I hope also you dispel all the black propaganda that is going on, today, like against communism. And like I say, free Palestine, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. And that is not a genocidal call. That just calling that people in that land should be free, whether they be Jewish or Arab or of any faith. So for that's what I wanted to put out there. And yeah, thank you for meeting me. Oh.
Thank you so much.